Hey there, folks. It's Jay Frost speaking to you from, of course, How to Raise, the weekly CFRE accredited program from the Philanthropy Mastermind series, brought to you by our friends at DonorSearch. We won't be talking much about DonorSearch today unless our guest chooses to mention them, but that's not through any lack of appreciation. This is the 10th season of the Philanthropy Masterminds programming. It's been underwritten by the folks at DonorSearch, and you can see much of that programming along with a recording of today's show on their website at donorsearch.net under the resources tab. You can also find links there to all of our content on both the website there as well as their YouTube channel in the chat today. So our producer Jack will be inserting that for you. So please go check all that out after the show. And while you're there, take a look at how they can help you to find and understand the greatest fundraising opportunities for you in the future. Now, I really want to welcome you here today. Thank you for being here with us live if you are, or for enjoying this recording afterwards if not. We are going to be really benefiting from a great leader in the field today, talking to us about a really important subject. Before we get into that, I want to, again, welcome you and encourage you to take part in the chat, which Becky and Joshua and Shamal are already doing right now for us. So thank you all for doing that. If you just let us know that you're here, maybe which part of the country or the world you're from, which organization you're with, whatever you choose to include there, it would really help. Hello there in Dallas. It would really help our presenter to have some context for the audience she's addressing today. And also, it's a great way for you to get to know one another. So please do feel free to use that space. Thank you. Now, Karen. And just get to know one another in that space. And that's your sandbox. So use it throughout the presentation today. Additionally, we have the old-fashioned Q&A. Usually at the bottom of your screen, please do use that as well. We'll be storing up all those questions and then sharing them with our presenter, anything that she may have missed in the course of her presentation, so that she can address them at the conclusion of her presentation today. So you do want to stick around throughout so you can be part of that conversation. And we encourage you to ask questions and make comments throughout. The more interactive it is, the better it is for you. And most importantly, the better it is for our presenter so she can really tailor the messages and the information to you and your needs. Now, in addition to the chat and the Q&A, I alluded already to the recording. If you are here with us live, you'll be receiving an email afterwards with a copy of the, or rather a link to a recording of the session today, as well as to the slides, which she is going to share. Additionally, you're going to see at the very end a survey. Surveys are so important for all of our organizations. They're really important to us. Please fill it out. Just take a minute to let us know what you thought about today, as well as what you want to see and hear in the future, including any presenters you'd like to see, as well as subject matter. We really do take that into consideration as we're programming, because we're doing 150 sessions this year, and it has to be built around what you need to see and hear. Now, today's session is something we know that's beneficial to all of us and something we've been asked for repeatedly, and that's, of course, digital, and more specifically, reimagining fundraising models in the digital era. And our presenter today to do that, of course, is Jen Newmeyer, CFRE, also known as Charity Jen. She is, among other things, the Senior Director of Digital Fundraising Strategy at PBS, and a nationally recognized expert in online engagement and integrated campaigns. She has over 20 years experience in the sector and has raised over $10 million online. She's a published author, podcast host, and a passionate advocate for digital transformation in fundraising. She's led high impact initiatives at organizations like one of my favorite stations, and maybe yours, WHYY in Philadelphia, and of course, PBS North Carolina. And she's the author of 2 books, including her most recent, fresh out of the box, Digital Fundraising Transformation. So with that, please join me in welcoming Jen Newmeyer. Jen?
Well, thank you, Jay, and hi, everyone. It's really a delight to be here. I'm seeing lots of familiar faces and places in the chat, so please keep them coming. I'm really honored to be here with you today. And so we are going to talk about, as Jay had said, reimagining fundraising models for the digital era. And just to reiterate, this is sponsored sponsored by DonorSearch. Jay, I'll re-mention that for you. And it's part of the How to Raise series, which is a CFRE accredited session. So if you are applying for your CFRE, please make sure to include this in your application. Alrighty, so Jay did a really good job of introducing me, so I'm not going to go too much through the information on this slide, but when you get the slide deck, if you want a little bit more background about me and my work, here is some information for you. So, today, we are diving into several topics of my new book, as Jay had just mentioned, the in Digital Fundraising Transformation, The Insider's Guide to Revolutionize Your Strategy and Raise More. So over the next 45 minutes, we'll examine one of the main issues that we have right now in the digital fundraising space. Then we will challenge the traditional fundraising models and explore how to integrate digital into every layer of a development department's work. We'll talk about cross-departmental collaboration and integrated campaign planning. And this information is really meant to help supercharge your results. And finally, we'll discuss what leadership looks like in sort of this ever-evolving space, along with some of the skills and staffing structures that will be needed to support a successful digital fundraising program. So then, at the end, in closing, I'll share with you a few tools and resources that you can use to prioritize your goals, assess your program, and some campaign ideas. Okay, so let's get started by identifying one of the issues that's really affecting our ability to have great success in digital fundraising. And that is the broken giving pyramid. And this isn't just my opinion. It was the headline of an article in the Chronicle of Philanthropy from 2023. And in this article, they interviewed development officers from across the country who focus on digital acquisition and online revenue strategies. And they had a lot to say about it. They claimed it's too rigid. They claimed it's too limited. It does not capture the complexity of today's donor behavior and the digital first world that we live in. So as many, and I found the same thing, but as many of you may be familiar, the giving pyramid demonstrates a linear path for donors. This is from entry-level giving to mid-level to major gifts. But digital has really disrupted that, and the journey is just not linear anymore. Our strategies are no longer confined to these very distinct and isolated levels. Audiences are coming to us from various entry points. Donors at all levels are engaging with our content online. So a prospect can become a major donor overnight. Alternatively, a highly engaged and active individual might rarely give, or maybe even never donate, but their vast and influential network could have a tremendous impact on amplifying our mission. Additionally, there are new ways to acquire and cultivate audiences through digital touchpoints, and this requires significant internal collaboration. Support really is needed from marketing, communications, production, events, and anyone involved with digital strategy. And this can actually be a very new approach, particularly for legacy organizations. So often silos emerge, and sometimes this is completely unintentional. And this is where strong leadership is needed. So without it, we end up in a cycle of turnover and failed attempts at a really effective online engagement that results in conversion. So what can we do about this? Well, we need to rethink the giving pyramid as well as reframing other traditional fundraising models. So today we are going to look at new models that embrace flexibility, account for digital touchpoints, and support collaboration. So we'll first start with the giving pyramid. So in this model, you can see these traditional levels that I just mentioned. We have one-time donors that we work to convert into annual or repeat donors. From there, we aim to convert them into sustainers or monthly donors. Our next series of actions would be to upgrade these supporters to mid-level donors or those who give at higher amounts. And then from there, we move into the more familiar major giving program and onto those legacy gifts that are a part of planned giving. And examples here would be estate gifts, wills, gifts of stock or property. So as you can see, this model starts with the donor, but acquisition efforts are crucial to fuel this pipeline. So we are adding a new acquisition level to this model. Now, most organizations have an acquisition mail program like direct mail, but for digital, we have so many tactics in our toolkit to create a strong program that supports acquisition and engagement. For example, we have social media and we have search ads. We have emails and automations such as a welcome series for new donors or for email subscribers. We have virtual events. We have live streaming. Live streaming could be town halls, behind the scenes tours. We can even do instructional classes or expert panels. We have texting programs, both text to donate and text to engage. There are podcasts and peer-to-peer campaigns. We can even incorporate elements of fun with trivia and personality quizzes. We can create an ambassadors volunteer program to help amplify our message. And of course, we have some of the more technical aspects of a digital acquisition program, such as optimizing our websites and our donation forms for mobile, along with A/B testing and employing SEO tactics. So clearly, this revised model has the potential to have significant impact on growth and revenue. Now that we have revised the giving pyramid, let's take a look at another familiar fundraising model. We have the constituent concentric circles. So at the center, like the core of the sun, we have our primary stakeholders. With this group, the affinity to the organization is very strong. Among these individuals, we have board members, advisory committees, we have major donors and executive staff. Moving out from there, we have current participants. This includes active donors, volunteers, maybe even clients. Moving out from there, we have former participants. These include lapsed donors, those who make passive or infrequent gifts, or even micro donors. So in the traditional model, everyone else falls into the organization's universe. And this is a mysterious group. Traditionally, they have been defined as having the lowest affinity for the mission of the organization. But if we use a digital fundraising lens, we realize the extraordinary value of this very broad universe and the ways that we can capture digital prospects and work on an intentional cultivation strategy. So for this level, we specifically have video viewers, social media followers, and those who have demonstrated at some point some kind of curiosity or about our mission or have some alignment with similar missions or themes. So then what we'll do is add another distinct level just before the organization's universe, those with similar interests. And this can be email subscribers, lookalike audiences, or web traffic in which we can launch retargeting ads. So clearly, by expanding our definitions of these audiences, we can see just how many types of prospects we have available in our cultivation strategies. So finally, let's align moves management with the growth funnel. So many of you will be familiar with moves management for major donor cultivation. But as with the giving pyramid, this starts at the donor level. But the growth funnel takes a very intentional approach to cultivate new audiences through engagement touchpoints such as introduction and cultivation, and then moving into acquisition. The growth funnel focuses on the key elements of conversion. And for example, we're talking about from viewer to follower, from follower to subscriber, and from subscriber to donor. So once we have converted these audiences into donors, then we move into the levels associated with moves management, such as stewardship and then ambassador or advocate. So as we have seen with the other revised models, this alignment demonstrates the importance for our prospecting efforts online, the critical need for the conversion in the introduction, cultivation, and acquisition levels we have here. So now that we have redefined these models, we can merge them into a comprehensive and strategic approach. And this is my new model. This is the digital integration for strategic collaboration, or the fundraising DISC model. So this model demonstrates the strategies needed to reach the targeted audiences in the concentric circles, with the fundraising tactics on the giving pyramid through the growth funnel conversion levels for a cohesive and collaborative strategy. So starting with the outer bands of the model, the focus is to identify and convert constituents in the organization's universe and those with similar interests through an acquisition program of the giving pyramid using the introduction, cultivation, and acquisition levels of the growth funnel. Moving inward toward the donor focus, the one-time, annual, and sustainer tactics of the giving pyramid are used to engage the former and current participants of the constituency circle. Even further inward are the stewardship and ambassador growth funnel levels to build lasting relationships with the primary stakeholders. So the circular nature of this fundraising DISC model emphasizes the point that audiences and donors do not travel in a linear path, either up the giving pyramid, down the growth funnel, or in toward the constituent circle. By spinning the model like a vinyl record, a prospect or donor could land like a needle at any point. But developing programs with consistent relationship building activities ensures that no matter where they land, there is an intentional plan with a gravitational pull to keep them engaged in the work. Now, implementing this type of plan requires significant collaboration and integration. So let's talk about how we might handle this in a challenging environment. And what we'll do is start with two approaches. So the first strategy is one that focuses exclusively on the outer bands of the fundraising DISC model. These are targeted campaigns focused on digital audiences. Not only are there conversion elements, but there are also engagement efforts. So Giving Tuesday is a great example of a digital-first revenue campaign using primarily digital tools. Another would be an engagement campaign based on a theme that includes trivia or a quiz, an email series, a giveaway, and some elements of downloadable content for email acquisition. In my book, I talk about one of my campaigns called Ardently Austen that was based on Jane Austen's book and the program Pride and Prejudice. And we actually used all of these tactics for this campaign. We had trivia for the episodes. We had a personality quiz for the most popular characters, and participants could win an Austen Essentials prize box that was filled with puzzles and games. I carried this template over to a campaign called the Great Fall Feast. Similarly, 3 weeks of emails focused on different cuisine each week, trivia with a chance to win a prize box filled with cookbooks and kitchen items, and a downloadable recipe guide for email acquisition prior to our year-end campaigns. Additionally, we did live streaming tastings at restaurants in the area on social media. Another example, the National Parks Foundation had a great campaign during National Parks Week. Through email, text, and social media, they had photo contests, trivia questions, and downloadable park guides. They built up excitement during the week, and then toward the end, they had a triple match challenge with one of their partners. It was such a great incentive. Like, imagine your gift has 3 times the impact. So even a peer-to-peer campaign, either online or in person, is another great example of a digital-first type of approach. Of course, there are runs and walks in which participants create their own fundraising page and they ask their friends and family to donate. But there is also one called the Over the Edge Challenge. So if you raise $1,000 for charity, you can rappel down a skyscraper. So there's one coming up in June right here in DC if anyone is interested in that. So these campaigns can be fast moving and highly visible, but they require intentional and thoughtful planning for audience targeting and conversion. Okay, so let's move on to the second strategy, and this one points inward towards supporting the traditional fundraising methods with digital tools and tactics. For example, email and paid ads can be used to supplement a direct mail campaign. So when a mail piece is expected to arrive in mailboxes, an email or an ad asks if the recipient had received their letter. For corporate partner recognition, consider website placement, such as a sponsor box or a feature in video elements as part of a benefits package. Planned giving can be promoted online with targeted ads, including e-newsletters, or even hosting a virtual event that teaches audiences about wills and legacy planning. As for major donor cultivation, segmented targeted emails can feature insider news, promote member events, or even include a special CEO thank you and an update about current projects. So as you can see in this type of strategy, digital becomes the amplifier for all of these fundraising methods. Now, these two strategies are not mutually exclusive. Actually, the real success comes in the form of a fully integrated campaign. So here is an example of a robust 5-week year-end campaign effort. It includes digital-first efforts such as Giving Tuesday, but also incorporates corporate partnerships, events, board involvement, and traditional marketing with ads, email, video, and website features. You will notice that this calendar is segmented into basic, intermediate, and advanced campaign levels. So I use this approach in my book to help fundraising teams with limited resources prioritize their efforts. And really that's because building up to this kind of comprehensive campaign takes time. So by separating it in this way, fundraisers can work continually to build and improve their strategies year over year. So the basic strategy starts with a donation form, a website landing page, email, and social media. The intermediate moves into ad strategies, segmentation, and a few partnerships. The advanced level expands from there. Now, understanding these two strategies and how to approach an integrated campaign is one thing, but actually implementing it in an environment where there are silos and resistance can be a challenge. So I have a few tips. First, it's important to understand department objectives in order to align projects and determine shared goals. So consider scheduling a group discussion to talk about these plans. So what are teams working on? What do they hope to accomplish? And simultaneously, what are you working on? What do you hope to accomplish? So this kind of open dialogue can serve as opportunities to introduce new initiatives and reveal areas of collaboration. These discussions might naturally lead to identifying the need to shift resources. So this could possibly involve reassigning staff members to supportive roles or reallocating budgets for investment in technology and in marketing. During planning, creating a visual user journey that identifies each touch point can help the team better understand the roles and responsibilities needed for support of the initiative. So for example, a simple user journey would be someone clicks on a Google ad, then they visit the website, they sign up for an e-newsletter, they donate to a year-end campaign, they view a CEO thank you video, they attend a donor event, and then they provide a testimonial. So in my book, I have this user journey. I also have additional user journeys that incorporate a decision tree. So adding interventions if a user says no at any point, as well as a user journey for donor and non-donor segmented audiences. So from there, creating a campaign calendar like the one we just examined for year end can help establish workflows and ownership, as well as a layer of accountability. The calendars can even be expanded to include assignments, due dates, for example, and other elements to help everyone stay on the same page. So following the completion of a project or initiative, sharing the campaign performance and impact can really provide the excitement, the buy-in, and the momentum for future collaboration. I had one experience with introducing A/B testing on the donation form. So it took months to meet with the teams and explain the process and the desired outcome. So when everyone was on the same page, after our first experiment, we saw a 92% increase in conversion. So after I shared that result with the teams, they were 100% on board with trying new experiments. So in addition to these tips, I have a bit of research that might help with some of this internal alignment. So according to Zippia's workplace statistics, collaboration improves innovation by 30%. Organizations who promote collaboration perform 5 times better. 5 times better. Can you imagine what that might look like for your organization? Here's another one. According to Blackbaud Status of UK Fundraising in 2024, nonprofits who focus on the donor experience or the donor user journey report a 29% increase in revenue growth. 29%. Like, who would not want those numbers? And finally, those who prioritize digital innovation and investment, or those who are digital-first organizations, are growing 175% faster than those who do not. And that is according to the Next After Fundraising Benchmark Report from 2024. Now, in some cases, despite these amazing numbers and these sensible tips and strategies, none of this will help unless there is strong leadership. So sometimes it just has to come from the top down. So let's move into our final segment and discuss the skills, structure, and leadership traits we need for effective digital fundraising transformation. So first, we'll touch on some of the skills we'll need for our digital fundraiser or from the team. In my book, just as I did with the campaign calendar, I have categorized these into beginner skills for smaller organizations who are just starting out, then leading into intermediate, and then onto advanced skills for those who have digital roles either across departments or who are thinking of building a new digital fundraising team. So in the beginner category, you'll need a person or team to understand basic fundraising principles. These include average gift amounts, conversion and retention rates, email marketing skills, social media, and sometimes overlooked, an understanding of the CRM or the database of record. And this includes account structure, queries, and reporting. Moving to the next level, we add user journeys, online ad strategies, and audience segmentation for the purpose of personalized communication. And then in the advanced category, we're looking for A/B testing skills, analytics skills, such as being familiar with Google Analytics, live streaming, knowing live streaming, and SEO strategies, to name a few. So now that we have some insight into the skills we need, we can start to think about a few options for team structures. So I'm going to share with you 3 structures that I actually suggested to an organization I worked with a few years ago. They had some resignations and some reassignments, and they were thinking about how to restructure their team to focus more on digital first strategies. So the first example that I shared would be to establish a manager or a practitioner. So this person would be responsible for executing the social media, ads, email, and events, and those elements from the beginner skills category that we just covered. I'm sorry about those dings. My Microsoft Teams has a mind of its own. Okay, so these could be new tasks, as was the case with the organization I was working with, or these could be tasks that are reassigned from other staff members who had adopted these responsibilities over time. So to illustrate this in this graph, the staff members, say 1, 2, 3, and 4, who implemented these tactics would shift them to the new manager. The manager would focus exclusively on these tasks, while the other staff members could refocus their efforts on other duties or simply lighten their load. Okay, so that's the first structure. The next example allows for a little bit more strategy and leadership. It takes more of the intermediate skills into consideration. So in this example, an associate director might adopt some of the duties from other staff members. In this example, they would handle social media and ads, but some of the staff members would retain their duties and then report to the new director. So this allows for elements of campaign strategy to be incorporated into annual planning. So it's a bit of a blended approach. And then in the last example, so this would be an organization who is ready to create an entirely new department. So a director would be hired or promoted from within to oversee the staff members responsible for these tasks. Their focus would shift to advanced campaigns, strategy, and many of the elements in the advanced skills category. For example, creating the annual plan, determining the campaign cadence, leading the implementation of those campaigns, and some of the advanced tracking, auditing, and reporting that comes along with really successful campaigns. So this type of structure would be a significant investment, but it would allow for swift and immediate growth. Now, I've actually operated in all 3 of these structures. Early in my career, I was a one-person show. I handled all of the email newsletters, social media, campaigns, graphics, reporting, even the Google Ad Grant. Plus, I launched a social media ambassadors program and implemented 2 website redesigns. Then I moved into the hybrid model. So working with colleagues in marketing and events, but still directly responsible for fundraising emails, donation forms, surveys, campaigns, and reporting. Finally, I led the program strategy as director at a large organization, coordinating my staff and other teams to execute the activities. Okay, so now that we have some ideas for how we might structure our teams, let's dive into those leadership traits for digital transformation. First, and so important, I can't emphasize this enough, our leaders are committed to innovation and progress. They understand the critical need to connect with audiences online. They are willing to experiment and they're not afraid to fail. In fact, through failure comes knowledge. Team members have the confidence to implement creative campaigns and launch these experiments because the leader upholds the vision of digital transformation. They stand up for their team. They're excited about new projects. The vision for a digitally mature organization focused on transformation is written into the strategic plan, and it is a part of team goals across the organization. Next, and equally as critical, our leaders advocate for and invest in resources. There is a laser-sharp focus on sufficient technology and an investment in marketing. As much as possible, they advocate for these expenses in budget planning and justify them with executive leadership and board members. They may even seek creative fundraising sources to help stay on the cutting edge. Our leaders encourage open dialogue. When needed, they help delegate tasks, but they do not micromanage the process. They actively listen, they seek feedback, and then they act on it. They create a healthy culture by focusing on trust and work-life balance. They ensure that the staff time needed for projects are allocated appropriately. Staff members feel comfortable voicing their concerns because they feel valued and recognized. So finally, to bring this section home, I have some research on this topic from the Salesforce Nonprofit Trends Report, 5th edition. So organizations who prioritize investing in resources are 3.7 times more likely to score highly for digital maturity. Those with high digital maturity have employees who are 3.5 times more motivated about their work and twice as likely to describe their workplace as highly energizing and positive. High digital maturity correlates with organizations who care about employee health and well-being. They have lower levels of strategic misalignment and bias. So clearly we can see lots of benefits for focusing on leadership, collaboration, and integration within your organization. Okay, so I know that that was a lot of information. So let's recap the 3 big takeaways from the session so far. So first, we learned how to reframe traditional fundraising models with the Fundraising DISC model. So this refreshed look brings a modern strategy to classic frameworks and offers ways to create a cohesive fundraising strategy. Next, we looked at ways to encourage cross-team collaboration with the outer band strategies, the inner level support for planning and user journeys, as well as creating integration with shared goals and calendars. Finally, we focused on effective leadership and team support for digital transformation, including investing in resources, aligning staff skills, evaluating team structures, creating a healthy team culture, and ensuring a commitment to innovation to drive long-term growth. So we covered quite a bit. So now let's move on to some resources that I have for you. So this first is a worksheet to help you prioritize tasks and projects. Whenever I do a session on digital fundraising, there are inevitably questions related to resource limitations and small teams. So I've created an impact effort priority matrix. So the handout has 4 quadrants to evaluate the low and high impact and effort of your responsibilities and future goals. And you can do this in 3 simple steps. I've also included some starter tasks to help jumpstart your brainstorming. So you can scan the QR code or to get the worksheet, or you can read more at charitygen.com/team-of-one. The next resource that I have for you is a guide to creating an engagement program. So you may have been curious about some of the campaigns I'd mentioned earlier, like Ardently Austin or the National Parks Week initiative. So this guide will be really helpful for you. It includes step-by-step instructions to analyze your current development plan, identify gaps and opportunities, how to create touch points throughout the year, recommended metrics, and 25 themes and ideas. So you can get the guide by using the QR code or going to charitygen.com/engagement. So I think you'll really enjoy that guide. And then finally, I know I've mentioned my book several times, but in addition to the strategies we've covered here, there is so much more in the book. Included are 4 distinct digital campaigns with 15 ideas for new initiatives and evergreen efforts. And by evergreen, I mean those touch points throughout the year that are just continually staying in touch, in contact with your audience. There are 29 of the most effective metrics for evaluating performance. There is a thorough explanation and exploration of A/B testing with 13 ideas and results. There are practical uses for predictive analytics and generative AI, and there is a complete guide for auditing the online user journey based on growth funnel principles. So the QR code will take you straight to Amazon for the book, or you can learn more at charitygen.com/book2. And finally, one other thing I wanted to mention that is in the book that I think you will probably find very helpful if you're looking for launching a digital fundraising efforts at your organization. There is the Digital Fundraising Maturity Scorecard. So here you will find 74 questions that align with 7 characteristics that I've outlined for a digital fundraising organization to help you identify the need at your organization and help you focus on growth. So it helps you establish a baseline from which to build, and also includes a quick start guide. Okay, so again, you can scan the QR code to go right to Amazon, or you can just make note of the URL charitygen.com/book2. And finally, let's connect. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Blue Sky and also on Mastodon. The links for those platforms are at charitygen.com/about. And I also have a monthly newsletter with tips and strategies that you'll find helpful. You can sign up at charitygen.com/sign up. So thank you so much for spending time with me. I know how busy nonprofit life can be, and the fact that you are investing in learning, strategy, and leadership means that you're already on the path to transformation. So keep testing, building, and growing. And thank you very much.
And don't go away, because
Okay.
there are questions, and I know that you're going to take a minute to answer them. But first of all, thank you. That was so robust. And I know there are other questions here. So people are thanking you in the chat, which we all should do. This was, as Kristen just said, very interesting. Absolutely. Everything from what was not a metaphor, but a practical strategy, using an analog example for digital transformation, which I thought was not only clever, but brilliant, because anybody who's actually worked with vinyl and puts a needle down knows exactly what you mean.
Yes.
And now, if this had been an 8-track example, I think the whole presentation would have been a lot different. But that was brilliant. Anyway, so much here. Before we dive into the questions, we have a few in here, but I want to give people a moment to ask any others. So if you have a question, make sure to put it in the Q&A so we do not miss it. And while you're doing that, I want to let you know what's coming up in the series. On the PM podcast, Sabrina Walker-Hernandez, who's the president and CEO at Supporting World Hope Coaching and Consulting, talks about her journey, Boys and Girls Clubs, missionary background, and a hair-raising battle with cancer, all of which led her to do the consulting she does today. Really inspiring conversation. You can find that on the PM podcast, which drops tomorrow night. And then on Tuesday, next Tuesday, the 15th, we have Frontlines of Social Good, where our guest is Ken Miller, author of Becoming Ken. If you have not heard his story, you do not want to miss that. That's at 1 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday. And then back on this show, How to Raise, next Thursday, April 17th, we have 5 things that greatly influence how many Gen Ops dollars your organization raises every year. That's with Sherry Kwam Taylor. That'll be both a lot of fun and very helpful if you're looking to add to everything you just learned from Jen right now. So with that, Jen, I'll jump into the questions, and there are a few that are loaded up here. Maybe I can start with Deborah's, which is, Deborah had said, our marketing social team is resistant to using its platforms for supporting fundraising efforts. We're a museum that also has membership in social media, puts its efforts there. You know, we run into this sort of thing. How can we be persuasive that social media is a vital part of fundraising campaigns as well? Is it possible with our working with our own fundraising social accounts as a possible answer?
Well, I think, yes, these conversations come up a lot because the marketing communications team has their own strategies, but the fundraising team has their goals. So each side has their, they're trying to meet their goals. I often suggest, a lot of times organic posting on social media for fundraising initiatives doesn't necessarily result in very high engagement. So I think that might be why you're seeing some resistance. So I would suggest starting with ads. Ads targeting audiences for fundraising initiatives are a great way to kind of start the conversation with the social team. I had mentioned before supporting direct mail efforts with ads and emails. What we used to do is take our list of the folks who had received the direct mail piece, upload that into Facebook and serve them with a targeted ad that talked about the letter that they would receive in the mail. So that way it is a targeted audience. It's a very direct message. And it's not really a part of sort of the marketing elements, that come into, social media goals and practices. I can understand why social media teams are very protective of the platform because the algorithms are just so brutal. And so you really do need to be thinking about high engagement with almost every post that you put out there. But starting the conversation maybe with targeted ads during campaign times might be a really great way to merge into these conversations and create a little bit of collaboration while also sort of understanding the objectives of both sides. The other thing that I'll mention is that utilizing engagement elements as part of a fundraising campaign, I had mentioned National Parks Week that had, the photo contests and, the downloadable hiking guides. All of that created sort of momentum within the social media platform with those audiences. And once those emails were acquired, then at the end of the week, that ask for the triple match, like that was kind of the key for the fundraising campaign. So finding ways to work together in that way that meet the goals of both teams, it can be done. I promise you.
Have you found that you really need to get all that buy-in first before deploying what is not just a one-off, like we're talking about here, but a strategy that may last over months? Or
Sometimes it takes just starting off with just a little toe in the water. So, working together through maybe just one or two elements throughout the year and then building on that into a more robust annual plan works. Also, incorporating marketing team members into some of the fundraising meetings is helpful, as well as on the other side, incorporating some of the fundraising staff into the marketing meetings just to hear what everyone is talking about, what their goals are, what they're working on. And again, bringing those plans together for a shared conversation is sometimes a good strategy to go about breaking down those silos.
Thank you. And for those who are here with us live, Jack, our producer, has taken the liberty of taking the QR codes and those text links and putting them as hyperlinks in the chat. So if you haven't seen them and grabbed them yet, I would encourage you to go ahead and just click those as we're going through the Q&A here today. Valerie had asked a couple questions, the first of which was, can you give some examples of ways to use A/B testing I can't read the rest of the question, but I think you can see it right there, to get better conversion?
Sure. There are there are several ways of approaching A/B testing. So I'll start first with donation forms. So that's the conversion that we're really kind of, sort of most engaged in. So There are different elements that you can test on the donation form for evaluating the impact of conversion. Most organizations start with a streamlined approach, so streamlining the fields, removing unnecessary fields, and testing them to see how they perform. Now, if there's anyone on the call from public media, I will say that be cautious when you're testing your donation forms during pledge drives because pledge audiences perform differently. They're used to the donation forms that are longer and have more options and thank you gifts and those kinds of things. It's just that during a pledge drive, like all messaging goes towards pledge on most platforms for public media. So when I was at WHYY, we tested outside of pledge. When we tested during pledge, the results were always different. So remember the audiences that you're speaking to if you have fundraising times like that. So back to the donation form. So streamlining the fields is usually the first way to go. The second is improving the value proposition on the form itself. Realizing that people are coming to that form from various places. So if they haven't been on your website and don't know a lot about your organization and come to the form and there's just one sentence that says, thank you for your gift, experiments have proven that having more of a value proposition on your donation form will improve conversion. So that would be the second thing that I would recommend. The third thing would be looking at the number of steps and testing the number of steps that you have from your donate button on your website to the donation form. If it's just one step, great. But if you have multiple steps, you might want to test that. So that's testing for donation form, but you also have testing for emails and for not as much, but for web pages also. And of course, in emails, you're testing subject lines, you're testing copy, the number of buttons within the form. There's also some extensive testing on emails that look more marketing, like marketing with banners and lots of imagery versus emails that are just plain stripped of all of those marketing elements. So that's something else that you can test. So there are lots of options, as I said before, and you can find these on the internet. But as I said, I do have many examples in the book of A/B testing. That's one of the final chapters, and we really take a deep dive into that.
And you referenced Next After before as one of those slides with the data, and Next After has done some wonderful work looking at A/B testing of things like that. We're stripping out images. How does that work versus having images? And then the other things you talked about, such as the hurdles that we sometimes place in the form, and if by removing those, does it impact when there's what the drop-off rate is? So that's another great thing to look at here, and be on the lookout for the slide deck today, because again, that data is in the slides, as you saw. And Nancy just said that she bought the book. So that's never the intention of these sessions, is to sell books, but it's nice when it happens. So thank you, Nancy, for saying that. That's very nice. Another question, which is there a type of email campaigning you advise over another? Are letters from the director or directors better or highly graphic and more narrative emails more successful for wide net kinds of campaigns?
Well, I mean, I think that as far as the campaigns that I would recommend, I mean, if I was working directly with an organization, I would want to understand first what their email strategy is throughout the year to kind of balance that recommendation. So let's just say you're an organization that sends a monthly newsletter, which is great. You have monthly touch points with your audience. And then let's say you have 2 fundraising campaigns throughout the year. In that scenario, what I would recommend is an engagement campaign, like you can find in the engagement guide. You can supplement one of your fundraising campaigns with some of these activities. So I'll give you an example. For the year-end campaign, I had mentioned the Great Fall Feast that we had at the beginning of November. So it was 3 weeks of just focusing on food and celebrating cuisine and celebrating restaurants in the area, and really diving into like the history of different dishes, to gather the attention of the audience, because we're heading into a very robust campaign timeframe where our fundraising timeframe, and we want people to remember the value that we provide, remember our organization. So when they're thinking it's year end and I'm about to decide between 50 organizations who have been mailing me all year long who I want to make my donation to, they will remember some of these engagement elements that you had beforehand. So as I had mentioned, a downloadable booklet is great. I was talking to one organization who has a 50th anniversary that comes up, and they work with a lot of different cultures in their region, and they were talking about doing a recipe book that features some of the recipes from their clients, from their staff, and making that an acquisition element. So celebrating our 50th anniversary, download the recipe, the recipe or the cookbook that reflects the vibrancy of our community. And you're capturing those email addresses, which is such an important, email addresses are so valuable. You're adding them to your email list, you're cultivating them throughout the year, and then moving into the fundraising timeframe. In my book, I talk about different types of campaigns. So you can have a singular engagement effort, or you could pair it with a fundraising campaign that you're already doing, just taking some of these engagement elements and incorporating them into your messaging and into your activities. Also that is those different types of elements, engagement elements and initiatives are also in the engagement guide if you download that. So there are lots of ways to go about it. It really depends internally what your calendar looks like already and the resources that you have. That is one of the most important things, the resources that you have to implement some of these efforts.
Thank you so much for all this, Jen. Really, really, really wonderful. Really appreciate your sharing all this with us. And I want to encourage everybody again to grab those links if you can. And if you can't, be on the lookout for that letter. It will have links to both this recording and to the slide deck. But do follow Jen's work. I know you will be pleased with the result when you apply it to your own organizations. Thank you, Jen. I also want to thank, of course, Jack Frost, our producer, our sponsor, DonorSearch, for all that they do to make all of this possible. I hope you'll join us for future sessions, including the podcast, as well as the sessions next week. If you have any questions or comments, you can always, of course, reach out to me directly on LinkedIn or by email. My email address, which I'm sure Jack will put in the chat, is j@donorsearch.net. And please, one final thing, fill out your survey so we'll know what you want to see and hear in the weeks ahead. We really do value that. And maybe a very, very final thing, if you're going to be at AFP Icon, please come and say hello. You'll find me hanging out a lot in the DonorSearch booth there in Seattle, doing interviews with award honorees this year and others. I'd love to meet you. So hopefully I'll have a chance to do that there, or at least meet you back here in the virtual environment in the weeks ahead. Till then, take care. Thanks, everybody.